This is Hunt Nebraska, the official podcast for insight into Nebraska's hunting and shooting sports community. Be sure to give us a follow on Facebook, our space for sharing stories, information, tips, and techniques. Now, Hunt Nebraska.
Hello and welcome into the Hunt Nebraska podcast. Today we have a fun day in the cabin here. We have a few guests in here, and so we're excited to come in and start talking a little bit about public hunting access, and maybe some private hunting access as well if we can get to it. But first, let's go ahead and do some introductions here. We have over here working the board is Rachel Carlson, the shooting sports and shooting range coordinator for the state.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing?
And we also have Adam Kester, and I'll let Adam give me his job title, as I know it's changed since I've last talked to you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me on, Kyle. I'm Adam Kester. I'm our Access Program Manager, so I kind of oversee our statewide efforts to improve hunter opportunity on private land through multiple programs, and have been in this role for about a year.
Awesome. That's great to hear. But before we start talking about public access, we got to talk a little bit about what happened here this last couple weekends, which is pheasant opener. I know, Adam, you're a big upland hunter, just like myself, so I got to ask, have you been out yet hunting?
I have been out. I tell you, it's certainly looking better than what it had been the last 3 years. Just reports from the field, from hunters, from different conservation officers, folks are harvesting birds. They're having to work for them. We do have a lot of cover, on the landscape, from the abundance of moisture we had last couple of years. And so birds are a little less predictable right now. Still some crops in the field. And so, guys that, that are finding those crop fields that are out next to, adjacent quality habitat, typically they're going to put themselves in the best opportunity to find birds. But numbers are better. There's no doubt about it. Still a lot of cover, still going to have to work for it, but numbers are better.
Oh, and that's where the time adage of finding someone with a dog that can come sniff them out, figure out where they're going is a big help. I know one of the advice that you used to give me all the time when I go out hunting is always just let your dog loose and follow your dog. So you got a couple of dogs yourself then that you've been hunting with?
I've got a German short hair pointer. I've kind of always been a pointer guy. I had to pick up a new pup here. He's 3 this year. My previous short hair, he made it about to 10 years old, and so although it was a tough day when he left us, but I tell you, anytime you can get almost 10 years out of a hunting dog, I think anybody would take that every time. But starting a new dog, that's that's flipping back to a chapter that's been a long time ago. That it can be testing at times, but he's full of energy that I'm not used to in a dog. At least in the last few years, I'm used to a pretty methodical, low energy dog, I guess. The older age, they get to be a little more careful in how they do things. That they're not just hair on fire, covered in ground like a typical short hair. But my new pup, I do think he's the real deal. I think he's got it in him. It just takes a lot of birds. A good bird dog has had a lot of birds in front of him, and that's kind of where we're at now. It's just getting him on a lot of birds to kind of firm up those points and not slow him up on a meadowlark or a mouse or some of the other good smelling items out in the field. Dogs just got to get used to a lot of that, and so no, it's been a lot of fun.
Good. I know. I remember my days of training my dog and how many different toys they would tear through with those puppy teeth and whining at night at first and getting through that whole stage of pretty much a newborn with the pup. So it's a trying time, but it's a lot of fun, especially once you can get them on a lot of birds and watching that aha moment when they finally find the rooster and be able to get the retrieve and everything all put together.
Right. It's really rewarding. No doubt about it.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about an issue that's kind of when we ask hunters all the time, especially new hunters, one of the big hurdles they always ask is, well, where do we go hunt? How do we find somewhere to hunt? How do we go? Because as we all know in here, and most people do know, Nebraska is majority privately owned, with 97% being privately owned, only 3% being publicly owned. So that goes in the whole question of, we have all these people who want to hunt. Where can we take them hunting? So that's why we asked you to come in along, and I was hoping you can kind of give some overall view, like where do we even start? Where you got a new hunter, hey, where do I go hunting? What's your first advice to the new hunters, or even hunters who've been hunting in a new area?
Sure. So it's something I deal with almost every day. As a matter of fact, 10 minutes before we started the call, I replied to an email about a hunter that's looking to hunt Nebraska. He's from Missouri. He's looking to hunt deer, just wants some information on public land. And so, what I did is I sent him our information that you can find on our website. Especially big game wise, some things that I would recommend to hunters is take a look at our harvest data, take a look at our hunter success, look at the units, and find those areas that harvest rates and permits are high and available anyway. Definitely look into that. That can help you strategize where your next step is. And so if you've identified a unit, let's just say if it's in western Nebraska, then you can go to our interactive atlas online that shows all of our available public land, which we got between 1.2 and 1.3 million acres in Nebraska available to hunt. And so that's a great resource for folks to get on and look. You can actually start by looking at the statewide map and just kind of figuring out, hey, this is a complex I want to look at. You can zoom into that complex just like what you do on Google Earth or on Onyx, which is another good tool. You can zoom into that. You can turn the layer on and off so you can actually see the property. And then, once you've kind of got a couple targeted, you can take it a step further by doing some ground truthing, taking a look at available cropland nearby, checking the harvest report, which University of Nebraska puts out. And so, as an upland hunter, I look at all that stuff pretty consistently, especially leading up to the weekend when I'm planning on doing a Saturday hunt. I want to know how the harvest report's looking. I want to know, what's available. So when it comes to actually strategizing where I'm going to go, we're going to look into those sites, find trails, find field edges, find pockets, really kind of pick those pieces apart so you're going into it with, with a good understanding of where you're going. And so when it comes to talking to hunters, I typically refer them to our website. We've got some great hunt planners that are available. A lot of times we give those out at trade shows and other things, but they're a really great item. It's kind of a quick summary of a lot of what I'm talking about, and it highlights a few areas in the state, that would be worth looking at. So if you're a hunter looking to hunt Nebraska, Google Nebraska hunt planners. That's a great first step in kind of getting your feet wet, when it comes to doing your homework.
Absolutely. So you listed a lot of great resources here. And so the one being right away, we have the actual, for us who like to prefer the hard copy, I'll do the Hershey imitation so you can hear what it is. We have the Public Access Atlas that comes out every year, usually comes out here right at the beginning of September, and it shows the entire states here, breaking it down, nice easy squares so you can look up inside. And inside you have all these different areas that are highlighted with the different types of public access we have in there. And so it's a great tool. I know Rachel's over there already digging through it. Excited to go.
I got to pick it up again. It's kind of hefty and heavy, and I do like that, but I do prefer the online one with its access, being able to zoom around, and then when you click on a certain area, it'll pop up with what's available on it or what's restricted, which is super helpful. So there's these keys, these color codes that kind of tell you what you can and can't do on certain areas, which is fabulous. And then I was going to say in the back of this, and there is an online version of the hard copy atlas as well that you can thumb through and search by keyword, but it has a listing in the back of all of the different areas, and again, some information on what the regs are there.
Right, because not all public access is the same. It's all, there's some in here that we do have some of our overall public that's owned by the states in there, but a large part of it is other properties that we have in. And so there's all these different color codings and stuff you see on both the hard copy and the online version. So, Adam, could you kind of go into what some of the different type of public properties are and how that might help you determine where you might be hunting, maybe based on species or time of year or anything else?
You bet. So I guess I'll take one more step back and I'll kind of go into what our OFW program is. So public access in Nebraska can mean a lot of things. We've got partner land, such as NRD owned land, such as Preview owned land or Platte River Basin environments, such as Ducks Unlimited, other federal lands, such as, our waterfowl production areas. There's many different avenues to hunt public land. But as far as Nebraska trying to hunt private land that's open to walk in, the Open Fields and Waters program is our flagship program for providing public access in Nebraska. As a matter of fact, this year we crushed our all-time record. We're at over 430,000 acres now. We had a goal going into 2024 or into this season anyway, that we would hit 400,000, and staff really knocked it out of the park. Awesome. We got some huge enrollments, a couple big Sandhill enrollments, which has been great. But in general, literally every corner of the state, I've got a map that shows a lot of our new enrollments, and you can pick every corner of the state and there's a new enrollment there. And so, big shout out to our staff, that are pushing this program, knocking on doors, getting folks involved. But the next thing is too, this is voluntary. This is 100%, additive to the operation that the landowner has going on. And again, it is voluntary. So we did increase our rates last year. And so in a lot of cases, folks are getting a little extra funding per acre. Which is how our program operates. We offer a per acre payment based upon habitat type. So for instance, the CRP is going to get a little more per acre because the demand for pheasant hunting is a little higher than the demand for prairie chicken hunting. Or, when it comes to the habitat wise, there's less options for habitat that support pheasants than there is prairie chickens. So, a lot of times our rates are going to kind of follow that model there. But so when staff enroll properties, we also use ArcGIS and other tools to be able to digitize all these acres and sites and be able to put them online onto our interactive atlas and put them into our hard copy atlas or our stubble guide, which I don't know, I'm blurred out now. Yep. I don't know how to do it. But anyway, you get it. So the stubble guide is also an addendum that comes out, but what those are, they're a resource for hunters to utilize that shows all of our available sites as of August 1st this year. And because that's when our agreements with the producers start. That can change. Now, any book, could be out of date the day it's printed. And so for folks doing their homework, I would definitely jump on the interactive atlas to double check what sites are available. We don't get a lot of changes from the book or from the stubble guide to the interactive atlas, but when they do happen, they're updated in the interactive atlas as soon as we're aware. So that's if you're traveling, if you're looking to spend a lot of time, especially on one parcel, definitely jump on the interactive atlas. So what you'll find on there too is there's different colors, and a lot of times those colors can designate different habitat types. For instance, the red that you see in the atlas is CRP. And so typically your upland game hunters, they're looking for CRP, they're looking for heavy winter cover, they're going to find pheasants, quail, potentially prairie chickens and and sharp-tailed grouse. They're looking for CRP. And so we've color coded things to help some of those folks out to be able to target different habitat types. The yellow essentially is just anything and everything. It's kind of our category to include other grassland, to include cropland, include timber, that in that case, it would be best to get on the Interactive Atlas Online or Onyx or any of the other hunt apps that are out there to be able to zoom in and actually get a lay of the land before you go. We also have other colors in the Atlas that distinguish whether or not there's a restriction, like the 9-day rifle season. I believe it's a yellow parcel with a red outline that indicates that that property is closed during the 9-day rifle season. We don't have too many of those. For the most part, everything is open for all species and seasons, but something to keep in mind if you do notice a separate symbol in the Atlas. And then, another example would be like our Canyon Access Initiative that we've got acres now statewide. It started in Southwest Lincoln County. There are areas in black. Those essentially, we partnered with the National Wild Turkey Federation to increase rates in that area specifically to try to get folks to try out the program. And it's been wildly successful there. Hunters like it. I know it gets pressure, but I've yet to have a hunter call and say there's too many people out here. Some of those tracks are large, and so it's it's tough to put too many people on those, and they're really rough terrain, which doesn't always suit every hunter. So
absolutely.
Does that kind of get at what you're going after,
Yeah.
Kyle? I can dive in more if needed. I got on a bad rambling kick there for a while.
It's all right.
I think people out there are looking for details, so ramble away. I had a question on the open fields and waters. What are some things that people should keep in mind if they're going out to that land that would not necessarily apply to a state rec area or a wildlife management area?
That's a good question. We do get that a lot. And so our Open Fields and Waters program is paying that landowner to let hunters walk in and hunt. And that is it. No target shooting, no horseback riding, no camping, and other things in that nature that may be legal to do on a state recreation area or on other, state-owned properties. But on Open Fields and Waters properties, these are private land. We're providing compensation, which is hunter funded, by the way. So as a hunter, if Kyle, you go buy a hunting permit, a portion of that permit fee goes into a budget that we use to fund this program. And so hunters are funding the program, and so we give preference to the hunter and the activities associated with hunting, in this program. And as a landowner signs up, they know that, hey, folks are only coming out to hunt. They're not coming out to camp. They're not coming out to recreate and things like that. And so this is a hunter program. And so one thing that you can look at, I believe it's page, it's in the front of the Atlas. I want to say it's like page 6. It lists all of the regulations and rules on OFW properties, such as like using temporary blinds, deer stands, things like that. And the obvious things in which 98% of hunters are very good at is, respecting the land, leave only your tracks, leave gates as you find them, pick up trash, even if it's not yours. Let's do the right thing. Let's take care of that property, and it's going to pay us back in the long run.
Absolutely.
Because as we get more and more folks involved with this program, we constantly hear that, well, it wasn't so bad. The misconceptions of letting folks on your property that you don't know is very real. And there's a lot of people that are very concerned about that, which we're working on some other options for some of those folks. But, once folks get that first experience, and we have good hunters out there taking care of things, leaving things how they found them or making them better. That's only a feather in the hat for both the hunters, but also our staff when we're talking to other landowners. So.
Yeah.
You're making me proud there, being the hunter at corner, talking about ethics and doing a good job of being responsible hunters. And that's hopefully what my program keeps doing, keep generating more good hunters and try to get people all doing the right thing so we can keep expanding these programs.
Yeah, it kind of seems to me like that next level of talking to the landowner down the road and negotiating access, but it's kind of just been negotiated for everyone, but you still have to have that same respect for the property and make sure that you're following those rules in order to maintain that access, because this is a voluntary program that folks are enrolling in.
Right. And, as a landowner, there are benefits. Obviously, they're getting paid. But they're also covered under the Nebraska Recreation Liability Act, which is something that I hear is a big perk to the program, because essentially this act states that if you're not directly charging somebody individually for access to your property, essentially the state's going to back you up if something happens on the place, if there's an injury on the property, if there's, God forbid somebody gets killed on the place, you're not liable as a landowner for those folks on your place. And so that act was put in place to kind of cover folks that are letting people on their property without charging, but also covering the folks that are getting into the Open Fields and Waters program or other state programs. And so that's a big benefit to the landowner as well. And rarely do we get issues, and to be honest, we don't have a lot of turnover in the program. Typically, producers that try the program stay in the program. And last year, going into this season, we kind of had our staff do a little extra homework as they're working with producers. We actually started tracking the reason why folks were leaving the program. And basically what we came up with is that 25 producers of our 800, I don't have the perfect number here. I believe it's around 850 contracts last year going into this year. We had around 25 of those agreements cancel. And with staff, what I was looking for is like, all right, let's learn from our producers. What can we do better to keep folks in? And so we listed out reasons within our Survey 123 system that they draft agreements on, a drop down that basically says, all right, if somebody's canceling an agreement, we want to know the reason. And we listed 6 or 7 reasons, right, like, land management change, death in the family, all the way down to just dissatisfied with the program. And not one of them answered that they were dissatisfied with the program. And we ended up having a 93.5% retention rate from last year to this year. And so 93% of those landowners decided to enroll again the next year, which is great. To me, that shows we're doing something right.
And that's a big kudos to not only the staff who put it on there, but as you were mentioning earlier, it's the hunters, the ones who are making the positive influence, leaving places better than they found. It's the hunters who, everyone here listening, it's because of the work everyone's putting in when they do go hunting there, taking care of the property, so that way the landowner just sees it as a benefit for everyone involved, which is what it is.
Right. That's exactly right.
So if there are landowners out there who want to get involved and get enrolled, how would they go about that?
Sure. Get a hold of any of our staff. Get a hold of any local Game and Parks office that you have. We've got all the district offices listed in the front of the atlas. They're all listed in our guides. You can obviously Google Nebraska Game and Parks, and you're gonna get numbers. Give anybody a call at the headquarters. They'll get you to a local biologist. Typically, the process is once we've made that connection between a local biologist and the landowner, local biologist evaluates the property, lets you know what we can pay, per acre on that. And we draft a very simple agreement. It's really not even a legally binding agreement. This is an agreement saying the Game and Parks will pay the landowner so much money per acre at the end of the hunting season. And, if the landowner wishes to withdraw at any time, they can. We do prefer that, once the atlas is printed, the property's in, but, we can essentially pull that property at any point that you want. We have a lot of producers that enroll a portion of their property. They're like, I've always left that 80 down there for other people. The rest of it, between myself and family, we want to hunt this, but that other 80 down there, I just let other people hunt that, make a little extra money on it. We have a lot of people that kind of take that route and enroll part of the part of their own properties in the program. But it's certainly not a program for everybody, but it's continuing to grow. And this year we had over 1,000 agreements with the Nebraska landowners. Wow. So it's growing a fair amount. This year we'll outside of any CRP haying and grazing or reductions in that regard, and when habitat is removed, hunters are paying for it, and so we justify a reduction if folks are haying or grazing. But we're on track to pay Nebraska landowners over $1.8 million through the walk-in program this year. So it's growing. It's been great to see.
Right. Are there any criteria for land that wouldn't be qualified for that, or does pretty much everybody get in that?
Sure. No, that's a good question. And to be honest, we kind of leave that on our local staff. Our local staff are also hunters. Something that I tell, any of the folks that I've kind of helped train over the years, it's like, approach it like you're a hunter. If you would hunt it, it's worth enrolling. And so that's kind of my criteria. Now, we do look at available habitat nearby. We look at complementing habitat nearby, the landscape in general. There's things we do take into account at a larger scale, but ultimately it's up to the local biologist, and the landowners know. Landowners know if it's worth hunting or not. Typically, we don't get folks approach us about properties that are not going to have opportunity. That's kind of the process and how we identify a site with opportunity or not.
I have to remember. So, little known story that you probably don't know about me, Rachel, was my very first boss when I came into working for Game and Parks was Adam Kester.
Oh.
Yep. So he was I got a firsthand experience of trying to enroll as many acres as I could in the southwest part of the state into public hunting. And so that was,
well.
I try to think so. You seem to brag about me every once in a while, but
that's good.
So you know more about this than you were letting on. I didn't know that.
Yes,
okay,
I was trying to tee up all the questions for Adam Kester Park, so I knew when we brought up that question, I know what his answer is going to be, because he drilled that question into me all the time too when I was out doing some scouting on the properties there, doing some evaluations of just
sure.
Go from that aspect of, would a hunter want to come here and hunt it? Yes, or with like I said, there's a lot of other factors go into it, but that's one of the first questions we always kind of ask of when we go to evaluate one of those properties, and then go on from there along some other topics as well. But it was
sure.
just kind of a cool
and the
backstory.
fact that you're bringing up, your previous position with us, if there's anybody out there interested in jobs, we're certainly looking for some of that seasonal work. It's incredibly rewarding. When it comes to actually putting properties on the map, and then, getting to drive by and see somebody out there enjoying it, that's when it really comes full circle, and you get to see that, hey, what we're doing is paying off. There's a lot of people that rely upon public land. As a matter of fact, 3 out of 5 upland bird hunters have surveyed that they hunt public land, or they utilize public land throughout the hunting season. And so, without public land, 60% of hunters would be impacted on where they can go. And so it's important we have that opportunity. And in a 97% privately owned state, it's critical we work with private landowners. It's critical we create those opportunities. The biggest barriers to folks hunting is a place to go. As a matter of fact, the top 2 reasons of why people have excuses not to go hunting is the fact they don't have a place to go. And so if we can continue providing these opportunities, I'm confident we'll continue the hunting heritage in Nebraska, and also try to get others exposed to it. I'm a father of 4 kids. I take them hunting anytime I can. It's the greatest way, in my opinion, to hone a kid's instincts. You get them exposed to things that they're never going to get exposed to inside, or especially in front of screens, or doing other things. It's really easy to get really sidetracked and busy and forget about the opportunities we have in Nebraska. But take a look at the public access atlas. There's probably an opportunity fairly close to you.
Oh yes, there's plenty. I know I'm already looking at it. I'm hoping to go out there, out west bound, where if you're looking at the big access, you see there's quite a bit of property out in southwest Nebraska. They're kind of an initial focus of this program at the beginning, and that's why there's such a large stake there. But I'm already looking at a few properties I know I want to swing by and double check there before I go out hunting and get that all planned out.
Yeah, I think you've only been talking about pheasants for the last 2 weeks.
I know. Bird crazy's going full. Not just my dog. It spread it to me for sure. So I'm excited to get going hunting, and maybe I'll hit up Adam to help me figure out where I'm going out to, or bring him and his kids along.
Well, the Southwest and South Central surveying really well for quail right now. As a matter of fact, I was over in the McCook area just last week and talked to a couple producers there that had enrolled some wheat and milo stubble with us, and the one producer told me that they saw quail on almost every field edge when they were harvesting. And that's pretty incredible. And the amount of ground that this producer, covered, that's saying something. So, of course, I took the dog along that day, and after I posted some signs, I took a little walk. Of course, I didn't have any luck, but on the way home, I did see a pheasant and a covey of quail, within a half mile of where I was hunting. So they're around for sure. Just putting in the time and working for them.
Oh, I thought you were going to go with the age-old problem that I have when I start getting to a bunch of quails. Like, all right, we got 10 quail flying all different directions, and if anybody's ever, gone hunting for quail, I don't know if you've had a chance yet, Rachel, quail don't fly straight. They zigzag, go every other direction, so they're kind of like my dove hunting shooting percentage. It's not quite, it's nothing I ever want to bring up or ever talk about too often, but yeah, it's exciting to see. I know.
They're fun to flush. I haven't, gone hunting for them, but I've walked through plenty of fields and, kicked them out of places. So they're fun.
Absolutely.
It's especially if you're hunting with a pointer, because once you make that initial bust and, they spread out, then you can kind of start picking things apart and get a lot of points on one covey. You might have a single or a double in an area, and that's a lot of fun. That's to me, probably one of the funnest ways to pursue upland game is once you jump that first covey of quail, go around and try to pick up singles. Your dog's really got to get in there, because those quail, they'll bury themselves under grass, like literally bury themselves to where they can't hardly get out of there, and you'll hear them struggle their way through the grass to get up. It's pretty cool.
Yep. I was hunting one that was actually a wheat stubble in the wheat stubble program that we had going on, and then had that lovely yellow around the wheat stubble on the map direction, which shows that in southwest Nebraska, that's probably a canyon draw. And so that was one where I said, all right, I'm going to go hunt along that. Well, on the edge of the wheat stubble on the canyon draw, did a covey of quail, and I winged one, and then my dog was so adamant and had to run to the hillside of this canyon where it's just bare. And I'm just like, what are you doing, dog? Like, it's going to go in the grass. It's going to go in something thicker, all that. My dog kept going over to this one side, and then started digging into the side of the canyon into one of those holes that have been dug out. And sure enough, I pull a dog back, shine a light down there, and that quail just crawled right and digs herself back as far as it could into the back of that hole. So you never know where they're going to go. They like to bury themselves, that's for sure, but it's obviously a great time to go out hunting them, and great programs and spots here to go hunting. But some other topics I thought I'd ask you too. I know we've been mainly talking about public access, but obviously you probably do some with your current job. But if hunters want to go somewhere outside of just public hunting, do you have any tips of how they should be approaching landowners? Do you do it every day, or your staff does it all the days of going out, talking, asking for permission? Do you have any tips of how they should be going out and asking those questions?
Yeah, I do a fair amount of hunting on other private land. But I would tell you the key is to not approach producers during the heat of the season, and try to find a time where you can approach a landowner When they're not going to be busy, when they're not picking corn, when they're not planting, when they're not moving cows, things like that, try to approach them at a time, where you're not going to be a burden to them, for one thing. The next thing is just be overly respectful, and don't be afraid to hear a no. That's one thing I think a lot of folks get a little hesitant to knock on a door, just because they might hear no, and that's to be expected. I mean, that's a lot of folks have other people that have already kind of reserve that spot, or if they've got family or other people that are already kind of in place to hunt there. That's what we all want. As hunters, we want other people hunting. We're all kind of on the same team to keep this sport, active and alive and thriving. And so, as much as it is, not the funnest to hear a no, somebody's still out there, somebody's hunting, that's a good thing. And so, as far as approaching a landowner, be overly respectful. Don't approach them at a time that's going to be, going to take them away from something that they're doing. And definitely do it preseason. And, I get a lot of these questions like the week before rifle season. I'm like, hey, most landowners have had their plans for the rifle season for months, let alone, could be an absolute, tradition that they do every year. And so, if you're going to approach somebody, maybe approach them, even if it's going to be deer hunting, maybe approach them for dove hunting in September, and do that in July and August, or later season, maybe ask if it would be okay if you came on and shot a doe in January. Typically most folks are pretty receptive to letting you shoot an antlerless deer, but a lot of it is just kind of establishing that relationship, letting them know how respectful you are. I'm big for giving chips and salsa to anybody that gives us hunting permission, and so I try to make sure to have chips and salsa to them before the Super Bowl every year. So when they're sitting around having a snack, watching the game, maybe my name gets brought up, and oh, hey, yeah, I talked to him. He's not a bad guy, So that's just a little bit, of my approach. The next thing is, landowners love to see kids. They love to see kids out. They love to see, folks trying to give that opportunity to somebody that's maybe never had it before. It's a great way to establish, hey, I'm here for pure intentions here. I'm trying to get my kid his first turkey or first dove, whatever. Bring a kid along with you. That's definitely a way that can get you on, some property as well. If they have, the time or, the days open, that type of thing. So that's just a little bit of insight on how I approach it. It's not perfect, I know. But the biggest thing is establishing a relationship, being overly respectful, and don't be afraid to hear a no.
Or maybe a come back and ask some other time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And don't do it over the phone. It's too easy to get a no over the phone. And once you've got a relationship with somebody, that's one thing, but if you're going to be on their property, they don't know you, they're likely going to have, a much better feeling about you if they know you face to face. And, I'm usually very upfront with people. Hey, I drive, this is my vehicle right here. If I got anybody else with me, they're going to be with me, and I can let you know. I'll text you or call you the night before we're planning on going. Just be overly courteous with them.
Absolutely. That was one of the things that we do in our hunter ed classes. We give them this hunter identification card, and they're like, oh, what do we do with, the kids always ask, what do we do with these? Do we, why do we hang on them? It's like, well, you fill it out. You put in, what vehicle you're driving, who you are, with your phone number. And if you go and ask somebody for permission, they say yes, then you can give them that so they know who you are, they have a contact information for you, and then they kind of know whose vehicles are coming around. So just having that information ready to give out, giving them a heads up, if somebody else is coming out with you, or a text like, hey, I'm going to go out that next morning to go out pheasant hunting, or I'm going to go out deer hunting that next morning, just so they're aware. And I know another thing that trying to get in through other avenues, you start going, first thing you're asking is go shoot that big deer. that kind of shuts off landowners. But I know a lot of mine that I got permission on was people who would actually want some coyotes gone or raccoons gone, or do some trapping, doing some of that stuff, do something that looks more like a service for them, and then start. I kind of ask, hey, I heard a lot of pheasants cackling when I came in. Do you mind if I'll be able to go hunt? Or maybe you might even get some that say, hey, I know you guys hunt it. Maybe I can come in hunting in a couple weeks after season opens if you guys aren't hunting as much after opener. Those type of conversations seem to help out quite a bit of just like, I'll give you guys your space, but if you're willing to let me just come in for one day, I'd really appreciate it. And then giving them something in the return. I like doing all my own homemade jerky, so I get a deer, I hand off a few bags of jerky every time I go out. Something to show appreciation for letting them come out there. Right. Very well. All right. Well, I think that should give everybody hopefully a good idea and taste of what we can be doing, what resources we have available, and what Game and Parks is trying to do to help overcome that hurdle of getting outdoors, getting people to be able to find somewhere to go hunt. So thanks a lot, Adam, for coming in. We really appreciate all your inputs. And if people ever have more questions about access, just reach out to Game and Parks, I'm sure, and we'll get either him or one of his trained biologists to help give you guys any advice you can.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. And as remember to hit like, subscribe, follow the podcast, YouTube, all the channels here, and be safe out there.
We'll see you next time on Hunt Nebraska.
Hunt Nebraska, brought to you by your Nebraska Game and Parks Commission.